for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to yet another video with me here today. Although I have to be very honest that probably in the next wave, because there's another wave coming in my life, I won't be able to record for a while again. There's a very difficult situation we're in right now because we actually have to get out of here. We're kind of forced to move and we don't know where yet. And it's not a very pleasant situation, and you know how things and people are in this world. Sometimes you're just like shocked, and you know, we realize this is it, it's what's happening. We're being thrown out, and we just literally gonna have to go, and it's just crazy, you know, at this time. And in parallel to this difficulty, this strenuous path that I've been living for probably the last year, still I managed to persevere each time and still at the sideline, which is basically at the front line, right? It just appears to be so, because this is still the emphasis of my life, is this mission, is this calling, is coming here, it's showing up, it's leading, it's guiding others, okay? And I know a lot of people are finding themselves, probably those of you watching, many of you as well, in these very difficult situations and strenuous conditions on your own, in your own experience. However, don't always relate it directly to perhaps what I'm sharing or what I'm experiencing. There's also individuality and different reasons and causes for why people are experiencing difficulty. So in the last video, we've talked about the collective of Christ and how it truly doesn't exist in the way we think it to be. Like, if I come here and share my difficulties, for the most part, let's say 90%, it would be just about my path. And there's 10% of those people who are truly following through and are moving along with the similarity in their embodiment in pursuit of Christ's mission work here in our physical form in this life right now, not somewhere else, right? This, what the Christ, as Jesus also spoke about, but it's universal cosmic Christ as the kingdom of God, right? The divine kingdom, or kingdom of heaven on earth. So then the rest, it's very few, like the minimum percentage of people who would associate with very similar trials, but it's not from the same cause. Like those of us who are truly at the front line of experiencing this, right? So you can't generalize this. That's what I'm trying to say, because whenever we generalize, we're not going to get to the root cause, and we don't get to the root cause, you will have repetitions because you haven't realized the truth. You haven't woken up into the truth of the matter. This is why I want to talk about another topic today, which is so important because it comes up a lot for many of you probably as well, this dealing with darkness, because it's been a general topic for so many of us, but we've been differently experiencing and sharing about it, right? There's different circles or groups, and I know there's a lot of people who are more focused on what the darkness does and how it does it on this planet. Let's say there's people who are uncovering tremendous amount of information, which is a lot about, you know, what the darkness has been doing and is still continuously doing on this planet. But this has been in continuation for eons of time. It just came up in different shapes and forms, right? Then there's people who would explore more how the darkness does that. And then there's those few of us on this Christ path who are more about experiencing this darkness within and having our own initiations and trials with the darkness. So we're not so interested in, you know, the collective per se, which doesn't mean we don't care about it, because the Christ is the most compassionate state you can be in, because you do care. But you realize in this state that the only way to truly move through darkness is through your own initiations into the darkness, into the abyss of the so-called hell. And hell is a place within, as you know, and it's constantly been recreated on this planet, like this state of existence, so it would cover up our eyes so we wouldn't see the truth of love and this light of Christ that keeps lighting our path forward. So there's a lot of us finding ourselves in the seeming inevitable, unbreakable, right, beyond our ability to move through, right, and beyond, and to transcend these situations that we've sort of felt kind of this deep despair. And in my own situation, I can tell you that only through understanding that this is a part of a bigger path, this mission of Christ, that this can be transcended. But it's not transcended and overcome at one point. There is no singular point in which you say, now the Christ is victorious and I will never again in this life or in any other lifetime experience difficulty. Let me tell you, light beings who are tremendously working for this cause. You think they don't have challenges just because they exist in their light bodies? You think that just because we're in these earth bodies we suffer and we're separate from the rest of the light being collective? It's difficult, and I've explained this in one of the previous videos, how even my light family told me it's difficult and it's hard to assess which difficulty would be harder, because again, it's not about comparison, it's just different. Everything in creation is just different levels, different approaches, different experiences that we're walking through. So we're trying all to find a little nugget of similarity in this diversity, which is diverse for a reason, right? So we can't put all of our troubles and challenges in one little tiny box or a little bottle and say, well, we've bottled them up and now we know what's happening, so if I can just hold this locked inside, then I will never experience darkness again. It's still, even though darkness would never be physically confronted or experienced, there would still be something like we're trying to put a lid, right, on this cover. We're trying to bottle this water inside, right, and say, this is it, so I'm putting it away. And a lot of people have been doing that, and now we've had 3 eclipses, right? This was intense, and we are still here. We've survived through, right? What I'm always saying, well, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I'm homeless. Okay, but then what's the worst that can happen? And I've experienced the worst. 3 times, I told you, I had a near death. And it's not one of those near-death experiences that people talk about in the New Age movement and how they go and visit the light planes, which in many cases, they're not really the light planes, they're still the lower astral. Because the lower astral is literally a space of creation where anything can be projected. It's a stimulation. You know, those movies called, what are they called? Insurgent? No, what's the movie? Divergent, you know, Divergent, Insurgent. I think these titles, when this woman, right, she has all the capacities to overcome these simulations because she has all the skills. So basically what the Christ told me today, because I do a lot of contemplation when I walk, was, the question was, what's that final thing I can do that the darkness would no longer be bothering me and having me as its target and its delicious meal, right? And I was just contemplating, and my best meditations are walking meditations because I'm moving energy. I'm not just sitting and receiving. That's my way of receiving. So I'm very functional in that way. And it was very simple. And I just had this knowing overcoming me, which is, it cannot be overcome. Darkness cannot truly be overcome. And, even in the ancient scriptures, I know there's a lot of writings there that are figuratively or metaphorically written, but we've been taking them to personally, like adjusting the words and suiting them, like making them suitable for our own experience. Even, with the Bible, it's the same. That's why I love this gospel book, a book that focuses on the true ancient Christianity that was before all this religion and churches and this modern religion, which is basically the ruling over and domination, right? And enslaving people into making them perceive reality as they want it, right? The so-called opposition, because the opposition only exists because it made itself as opposite from source and divinity as it is and as it truly exists in truth. So before that, this ancient Christianity, right? In this booklet, the same gospel is given as in one of the previous workings that I don't know the title to, but it's actually explained with the new true meaning of the Christ coming through the prophet Gabriel, and it's in German. And I still don't have the book with me because it's always in my spot, and I don't carry it with me, especially not often, so I don't have it with me here. but it's in German, and the real title is Das ist mein Wort, which means like this is my word, something like that. So I still don't know the English title because it's translated directly from German to my language. But it's this beautiful white thick book with golden in scripture, and it's by Gabrielle. I think she's a German woman. The book is from 89. I think the prophecies or the way it was written, it often mentions the year 89. And I told you the 80s, 70s, 80s, first half of the 90s was when the best of these things were occurring. And then around the millennia 2000, there was again another closing. I know a lot of people don't believe in that, but remember, each light pouring out, which we had in the harmonic convergence in 87, will create another dark wave coming and trying to interject that. So people don't know that, so they try to make the lights seem as the only thing, and yes, in its source it is, but in the worlds of matter, in the worlds of creation, it's all being played out. And we often have to come back to the self and remind ourselves it's just a stimulation in a way. It's just a game. It's not a game in a sense of it's not important or it's just funny, it's hilarious, I'm not going to even take it seriously. We do take it seriously, but not so seriously at heart. We don't take it so much at heart. And I know I've been doing that because I'm a deep person, and everything will bother me, and everything will hurt me, and everything that I will see and witness about others, not just myself, will inflict another wound in my heart. And the true nature of compassion, I just recently read this again somewhere, is when you can feel. You feel the pain and suffering in the world, and you just feel it, and you don't have to identify with it in a way. You don't have to try it and fix it and solve it. But the deepest state of compassion is just embracing it with the deepest love. But we first have to feel it, right? So going back to the topic of darkness, and what in many cases in this booklet Christ has also been referring to as many reasons for that to still exist in a way, and we're going to explore that too. But it was very simple. It's not to be overcome because it's always going to exist. It's a part of creation, so it can only be embraced. The trials that we're having, that many people are having now, is because they don't want to embrace the dark, and it's been happening for so long. And now we've been faced with the deepest demons of the collective human psyche, which still lives within us, because the human child is a part of the human creation, so we cannot negate that. It is what it is. And I know that a lot of New Age people have been trying to surpass this human realm and kind of like exist above it and trying to transcend and be above it. And again, it's just another place of power, not true grace. Because the kingdom of the God that the Christ aspect of source, right, talks about does not come about in that way. It does not come through transcending and being above it. It comes with union. That's why I've been talking about Illumined Union for so long, not like a journey of two people meeting, but the journey of opposites, opposite polarities, not just masculine, feminine, but spirit and matter. And it's been a difficult journey for me. For the first half of it, I've been just exploring and merging the inner masculine, feminine aspect so that the masculine, feminine Christ would both come into unity and be equal in one human form, in my body, in my human child. And the next is that spirit and matter, which is a more difficult component, but they also are, they're convergent, so they're happening simultaneously, okay? So the darkness, because it cannot be overcome in that way, we have to, in a way, also learn to operate through this realm, which means we're learning the scope of the earth realm. That's what I was doing for the past over a month now. It's just observing and seeing how the darkness moves through the earth, how it functions. And then the game of light and dark together, because I shared in the previous video how the more you are Christed, the more Christ is embraced within you, the less you will see darkness and light as opposition. And it got very difficult for me to tell what's what at a certain point. It's like, I don't know, the darkness used to be very obvious and it used to do this and that, and I recognized it, and the light was like this. But then it sort of merged, and now it's still merging in me. It's like the space of convergence that it's difficult and hard to explain how it feels. It just feels a certain way, and it's an inner feeling, it's an inner impulse. So that's why, for me, it's difficult to explain to you, and I can't teach it. But when you come to this point, you will see yourself. And I'm assuming, and again, it's another just a point of estimation for me, I'm assuming that at a certain point, it will just become like a crystal lake, which doesn't mean, oh, now it's overcome, and I never will experience difficulty and harshness or hardship again in this life. It's more like learning to be smart about it and playing with it. So it was a while ago that we asked this question, and first Spirit said, don't be too serious about it. Laugh. Just see it joyfully, right? See it playfully. Because first thing is, darkness does not understand how to function. It's like it gets confused, and the light, it gets uplifted. But then when the light gets brighter, it also uplifts the dark. So it's, again, it doesn't, the light does not in itself do that to make itself known, because it's already self-obvious, right? But it demonstrates to the dark what the light can do and be. And then the darkness can decide whether it will withdraw or whether it will still kick and scream and push and pull and, create havoc and tyranny, because it does that. And because my body has been so exhausted because of this, it started to act out. I told you I have nerve damage. I have severe systemic nerve issues, and I get pain throughout this whole area. And I can't remedy it because I have to deal with physical survival stuff right now, which is a part of the path, but still. And it's difficult. And we went into the body consciousness just a few days ago, and I've asked the body, like, what's the matter? And the body said, I'm constantly under attack. I can't heal. I'm under attack, because the body feels, and then it creates like constant, it's in this fight or flight, right? The body's trying to fight back. So it's difficult because we're still used to this framework of battling the dark, because it's been a path of so many light workers past, right? Like ancient history from people who've experienced a tremendous amount of trauma because of the game of darkness and light, because it was so intense at certain points. So now there's different issues that people are facing because of that, because we're in the age of reveal, right? The big apocalypse. And because there were so many false gurus and New Age teachers that have sort of distorted the true teachings of Christ, many people couldn't find the path. If you in this moment find yourself suffering, this is what the Christ told me. First is, as it's written in this gospel as well, we have many stories and anecdotes, stories from Jesus, right? When he walked, and they're kind of explained literally, but then they're again re-emphasized in this true gospel, which feels very resonant, it's very pure. And he explains what it truly means with very simple words, which is so amazing to read. I've never read something like that before. It's like a deeper explanation of the narrative, right? That was primarily there. So it's not like just written as a story that you can just get your own image of, but it's directly explained what it's meant behind those words. And Jesus in many cases explained, right? People came and they challenged him, and they said, well, heal this. If you can't, you're not the true Messiah, right? The one who is the Savior. And now we're no longer in the Savior frequency. We're in the embodiment, right? That was then 2,000 years ago. But still, the pursuit, it's similar, right? There's similarities at the root, right? For all of us who are going through this path. So anyway, there was instances where these people had no real faith. So he said, I can, because he saw the hearts of people everywhere he went, because he was connected to source, to truth. And he said, I cannot, because that person does not have faith. They don't believe. They don't even trust in divinity, or they worship false gods or things like that. So one of the issues is, I've been going through challenges, but I've never lost my faith. I always knew, I still know, I always will, what the flame of the spark of the divine is. The only thing I've lost many times along the way is the ability to trust myself completely. So there's been quite a training, let me tell you, to constantly come back to the space of trusting yourself, because it's easy for a true Christ spirit to know the divine and know that it's always there, but you don't always recognize yourself as an instant part of it, an extension of it. We're still holding a little bit of that fragmentation and separation from source, seeming like it's existing somewhere out there, right, outside of our experience, and we're just these small humans needing to toil and stumble and fall, right? And this is kind of where it gets tricky. The next possible issue for people who are very much suffering right now, and many want to quit and they don't see the light anymore, it's because they've worshipped or they believed in the false god. And I know for a lot of people, they don't want to recognize this, and it's difficult, but truly there is just one source, there's just one God. When people worship the deities or the demigods or many gods, and they were very apparent, very distinct at certain specific ages in our world, But they were just forces of nature that people then said, let's use them for this and that, and let's manipulate people, trying to make them think if they don't do this in that way, then the gods will punish them, or, you know, these forces of nature will act this way. So people would develop the sense of guilt and being humble in a not true humility way, but, you know, being kind of like lowering yourself down and having someone above you as a boss, and they tell you what to do and what to think and how to be. So that's power, right? That's all a manifestation of power. True divine source is not a manifestation of power. It is a manifestation of pure love, divine grace, and mercy. Anyway, and because people don't see that, and now in this new age world, a lot of people have accepted not just these ideologies. You know, people in the 3D world, you say, well, it's them because they're asleep and they're not awake, so they take these Hollywood actors as their idols, and they're worshiping these false idols because in truth they don't even know who these people are and who they actually worship, because it's like a whole chain of worship, and it leads you to something you have to see and witness, which is not God, right? And you have to explore all of these aspects of falseness and falsehood and who you're so worshiping, like maybe even just an aspect of you and behind the scenes, which is causing you to not see clearly, because there's still an aspect of us giving power to that demi something, right? In the true God is a triune God. Love, wisdom, power, the triune nature of God, divine Trinity. The only true source is a triune source. And then from it comes a pure emanation of this radiant love. When all of these rays within the human are complete, you have nothing but an exudance of emanation of this Christ love, which we call the cosmic Christ. And then there's many light beings serving the nature of cosmic Christ. So when I invoke in a prayer, in an invocation, in the booklet, in this gospel, Jesus always says, this narrative of life, the basic ruling foundation and principle is pray and then do. And act, right? So don't just pray and then wait for a savior to come. Do doesn't mean, well, you have to toll the earth. No, but do, make actions, live, move the energy, exist, keep on living, you know, don't get distracted, don't get bogged down. So when I do the invocation, it's always to this primordial source of life, this triune God. Then I call and invoke the cosmic Christ, all light beings who serve the nature of cosmic Christ. Then you can call individual beings such as Jesus the Christ and your own light family of the Christ nature, and then pull that down and just keep on invoking the name of the Christ, because it's not a figure, it's not an idol. You know, we all know that what the religion has also done, we still see, especially in our country and many other countries here as well, we see Christ hanging on these wooden or, you know, metal statues, like hanging, right? Christ still hangs on the cross. So what this does is it collectively impulses the land, the nature, the people with the suffering. It imprints the narrative here that the Christ still has to suffer, which we each experience in our own way. And when I go somewhere and I see that, I'm like, oh, you know, it's one of the reasons, because that's what they did. It goes so deep. So imagine what we do with these statues and worship, and it creates it invokes the astral energy, because this is how we create through the astral planes. So how the darkness functions, we've been talking about through numerous amounts of my work here and on Patreon. It's just been going very deep, because first you have to recognize the language of the dark, how they operate, how they get people on their side, how they gather up forces and resources. And yet whatever they do, remember, you cannot fall for the greatest lie and illusion ever told, which is first, darkness doesn't exist. Then when you realize that it does, it's a second level of illusion. It's stronger than source, because look at the power, look at what it created in this world. It's obviously more powerful, right? And then the third illusion is that you can do anything about it, because you're just this little tiny part, you're just this tiny human. You can't invoke the power of a Christ, or there's something as this Christ outside of you. It's bigger than you. It's bigger as there is a bigger part that you are also a part of. In that sense, it is bigger, okay? So it is very important to then, when you do that invocation, call back all those aspects of you that still worship or believe in these false idols and ideologies. Because in the New Age, there is this God they mention, but many times, and even in religion, it is a source. It's like a hub of energy, subscribed to a specific being. And even if you would just worship an extraterrestrial being, like Ashtar Command or something. I don't know. I don't worship any of these. There's beings, yes, but they have their own stuff. And when a being is truly pure in the nature of the Christ they exude, they would say such words like in this gospel, Jesus says to someone, they say, well, you mastered this and that, Almighty. He says, no, there's only one Almighty. You know, I'm just the expression, something like that. And it is what it is. Because when you have people even just telling you, this is how it is, this is how you manifest, this is how you do things, even if it's just something as small as that, and you say, well, it's just something random, it doesn't count. Well, yes, it does. Because there's someone telling you that they know better than you, that they channel more than you. You know, when I do individual sessions, which at this moment I'm unable to do, but I'm very good at what I do when I do it, I don't approach the one-on-one as me against that person and then I'm doing something for them. I create a space of unity, and in that unity, spirit moves through us, and the spirit does the work, and I'm just, you know, this channel. But there's a lot of people who've gathered a lot of this new age spiritual powers through believing that they have gathered these powers. They're able to, you know, have insight into you. No one even can have insight into you unless spirit, the Holy Spirit aspect, comes through, because you've humbly opened up paths, both of you, the one who came to approach you for your services and you who are here available for them. Open up this space. It has to be created from the pure sacredness, and the purity of heart has to be there. You know, if it's just a little bit of that corruption there, it will influence the whole, whatever you're doing, a seance, a reading, whatever. So we have to be careful about so many things, but most of all, because I'm talking about overcoming darkness here, is realizing we have to learn what it is, how it operates, and then learning to not, instead of judging its language and its creation and how it does things, realizing that we're a part of it because we're in this world. We're not separate from it. We're not separate from the world of light. We're not separate from the world of dark. Purely as such. We don't need to overcome anything. We simply need to exude the essence of pure living Christ. And we do that by allowing ourselves to receive the grace of the divine. And if you don't know anything else, just simply say, God, Source, Almighty, please have mercy on me. It's like the simplest term you can have, the simplest prayer. But the prayer cannot be told to someone or learned. It has to come from the heart, even if it's just speaking to Source like a small child would, right? Just talking to it. You know, when you have these movies, a child going to bed and doing like this and saying, please God, let me get a new bike this Christmas. You know, I know it's materialistic, but it's still from the heart. And somehow it gets manifest in a certain way because they really purely wanted something. But what a lot of us here in this part of the journey right now, what we desire is this collective shift. For us, we're clearing the way. So now the last thing I want to talk about is, why is it more difficult for us right now? Because a lot of people, which included myself at a specific point, it's like we couldn't feel connected anymore. We couldn't feel that same as before. It's difficult. It's difficult to explain, but I'm going to go with what Spirit is showing me. Imagine now, for eons of time, humanity has been plugged into a certain system. And even God, as we know it, for the majority of the people, has been a program. Ugh, I have goosebumps. I get chills just talking about it. Ugh. But it's the truth. It's a very harsh-faced truth for a lot of people to think all of my lives, and I was a person of faith. I was a person of God. I was a divine person. And yet, why is this happening? Why am I now losing this connection? All my life is falling apart. Let me tell you, your life is not falling apart. But it's being assimilated together back through God, the true God, the triune God, the God and the God of Christ, because I have tears now. Because I myself will tell you this, at the first part of my awakening, I woke up to assimilation reality too. And remember, years after that, it was in 2010, I had to realize these beings infiltrated me, and these beings were perpetuating this stimulation. Because we are in this bubble, and it is still happening to many, through many. And imagine how difficult it is being plugged out of that. And now the whole nature, this whole Godhead, this divinity with the Christ principle has to now re-anchor it. So why are so many people now, chills all over me, through prophets. True prophets always get cold with the chills. It's like I'm being shown, like imagine the nature, the grandiose nature, the scope of being uprooted. And people have been telling me, I feel uprooted too. And not everyone in this sense had to lose their home like we did. But for me, it was a specific trigger, because through these triggers, I've ascribed myself as a soul being, as a light being in this form, that I will assist this plane by re-experiencing the depth of this darkness, by going deeply into it. So I had to experience the core of it. Doesn't mean you all will experience what I did. It's so drastically, not at all. Usually, those of us who are in the front lines, we have to have it more drastic because we've chosen it, because we had the strength and knowing and the faith to do so. But you got to have really strong faith to trust what you're being shown and not misled by the darkness, which is telling you you're not connected anymore. You see, you're nothing. Look at your life. It's all falling apart. Ha ha. You have to laugh back at it. You have to learn to be smart and get humorous as well. You know, I saw this license plate a few days ago here in the hills. Someone walked, I guess, and it said yoo-hoo-hoo. It means like woohoo. You know, I was like, okay, woohoo, rooting. You know, like let's root forward. There is no other way. You can't give up, because the only way we really give up is by not seeing the bigger picture. And my assignment for the collective, as what I'm able to share, has been about not like to uplift you and your frequency. That's your own job. Everyone can do that on their own. It's not my thing and why I'm here. But is to help guide through these most turbulent times onto the other side, because there is the other side. But it's not something that we wish it to be like this and in an instant and the way we want it. And you know, when you're losing people around you or situations, jobs, homes, it doesn't matter. We've all lost something. Don't compare. Yeah, but you have this, but I lost that. Don't compare. The Christ never compares. You have to realize that everything you've created in your life, the good and bad, is serving a purpose. That's the first thing. That's how faith in you will grow. Because in the book it says faith and then the trust. Because the faith itself, like Jesus also preached, was not enough. Because there's people who have faith, but that's nothing they do to actually create a life living through divine principles and divine laws. He said first that law of faith, then you have to have trust, and then in combination, when you live it rightfully and righteously, that will create eventually you living through divine principles, divine law, and you will be governed by true source nature. You will be connected with divine will. So in many instances, what we're grieving over now, all of our losses and boo-hoo, woo-hoo, you know, I understand. I complain too sometimes because it gets too much difficult, but I don't just complain. I complain and then I do something. If you just complain, you have to realize that and say, oh, I'm doing nothing but complaining. I have to once again connect to that which is the real truth. I wouldn't find myself watching this video now if that wasn't true for me. And somewhere deep in the heart, that kind of, the heart is throbbing and it's telling you, yes, that's the truth for you right now. That is our truth, not just mine, but our. So imagine how it is being plucked out of this false God narrative, the fake God, which isn't, it's like antimatter. It's this idea that we've been all pushed into the stimulation that, as we know, there are demi-beings, demigods, many beings, many entities, powerful. Let me tell you, super powerful entities. They're so powerful. I don't mean to freak anyone out, but they're super powerful. And yet they're nothing in comparison to what you are when you join the group of Cosmic Christ. Nothing. I mean, you can die on I bet we've all died on many planets for several reasons when we were doing this missionary path. And it's like, coming back was like, okay, just, you know, after assimilation, coming back to the body. And then again, let's try again and again. It's like people playing video games in that kind of sense. There's a new trial. And in the book, in this gospel, it also says how the Christ always finds the path. Always. I was just recently told something that was very detrimental for me. And you know what I said? I went to swim into the water. That was when I was by the lake. And I remembered the famous words from, what's the movie? Gone with the Wind. When Scarlett said, I will cry tomorrow, right? Like tomorrow is another day, but today will act. I'll cry tomorrow. You know, just, it's not about pushing it aside, but it's realizing there is substance, there is beauty in something which is now. And all that we wish to grieve, it can be like constantly just grieving and grieving and because you can't eventually find your way forward anymore, because you've been just stuck in that grieving. Like, grieve for a while, but then, cry tomorrow. Let's move on. Let's find something that brings me that gratitude and joy, and it's through Christ, right? And we recognize that. Tiny things I've just been saying lately, because I don't have the bigger picture now in sense of my physical life. I don't have stability, but I'm finding my home in the tiniest of things, right? Tiny things. Pure splendor. Like, I found mushrooms yesterday. There were no mushrooms, but I found the only mushroom family. I was so happy. My nose, which is super sharp, led me there. And I was so happy. I said, this is my tiny gift today. Okay? And this is how we understand the true nature of Source, which is in all life. It's in nature. It speaks to. It's the Holy Spirit. Because all life is inspirited. Even in matter, all life is truly existing, pulsing in its spirit form. We don't just see it. Like, when you look at the plant, don't just see it like a plant. Oh, it's for me. See it in its spirit form as well. It's all spirit first. So we're being uprooted, and there's a lot of grieving and complaining and crying and sadness and this feeling of uprootedness. But we're being right to the real hub. That's what's happening. These are the words now. Have come through, and this path is not for us to overcome something, because it's when you think of yourself, right? Imagine this tiny human that needing to overcome something. It's kind of an assignment, right? And then you think, why would God, it's divine beauty, push me in these situations that I now need to overcome something? Like God is just toying and messing with us. But that's not the true nature of Source. That's the ideology of the old, which was an indoctrination. Rise above, overcome. There is still power in the words I overcome, that Christ overcomes. But it's not like a human needing to, climb on a hill and go through all the hurdles and then try to find a way. So when I meditated on this here today on the hill, this is very good energy here where I am today. It's the only spot I found that really has good energy. The words were, when we prayed, the only way that the Christ always finds a way, right? The path always clears, is when you don't see the path as something separate. You have to become the path. So it's like when you're walking, the path walks you, or you walk the path. The path walks you, you walk. It's difficult to put into words, but Christ literally said the only way to open up these paths, the end of stream of life force moving through, is when you become one with the path. It's not something that can be taught, specifically not in a workshop. I know a lot of people are trying to make money and profit from selling you all kinds of goodies and stuff. I mean, basically the only thing I can still do is do this, share my own living example, the testament of my own Christ embodiment work and experience. And I can do these individual sessions because I'm trained and skilled to do this work through my many lifetimes, and offer the knowledge that I've gathered, the wisdom. But still, it's zero in comparison to what love does and how it embodies itself. So, like one example would be today, for the past few days, we've been kind of having these little nightmares at night because the situation is, we're being squeezed in again. And when you're being squeezed in, you as a human, you're trying to find a way out. How to get out of here? How to get out of this situation? How do I get out of it? Always remember, what you get yourself into always knows a way out. If there's a way in, there's a way out. But again, it's not like finding the right path. It's you becoming the path, and then that just withdraws. The energy opens up, right? So that's the difference. Like when you have a situation and you're trying to find a way through it, you're not finding a path, but you need to become it. And then, like with the Christ essence, clears up. Again, it's difficult to explain. I'm doing my best. Very simple hand gestures, like little puppets playing here. But it's like what we can do, right? What else can we do but that? When you think about it, right? And we've been having these mini nightmares. And when I have dreams like that, I often have dreams like these stimulations of dark, how to overcome it. So tonight I had this dream that I had people helping me to move. People came and there was so many stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff there. And then this person who like rents, like this, right? This person came and they didn't want us out. So they called police on us in the dream. And the police came there and we were so frightened at first. And the police said, oh, we've received news that you're causing disturbance, right? Peace, law and order, right? You're making disturbance. So we're just going to give you a sedative. And we're all like, no, what are you going to do to us? We were like first like this, like shocked. And then I remember specifically one part of the dream when I just started talking to a woman cop. And I just explained to her the truth. I said, all we're trying to do is just get out of here. And I told her the words of truth. I said, I have the right to go where I want to go and to leave this place. I owe nothing here. I can leave. I'm free to leave. And when I said the words, I'm free to leave, the police was like, oh yeah, you're actually not causing any disturbance. And they realized that the person actually lied, right? Because they try to prevent us from moving out. And in the end, some people came and I think we moved. I don't remember the whole thing, but it's like that. So I talked to my mother and she has similar experiences. So she said she had a dream that we had these pure light bodies. But then the darkness, what it did is they kept putting these tiny little ticks, a tick, the blood-sucking tick, they kept putting them in her body. She said it was terrible in the dream. And I contemplated on it by walking here in the hill. And I thought, this is interesting, right? How do you do that? How do you, again, it's like, the automatic response would be pluck it out, pluck it out, pluck it out, right? That would usually be our most automatic response because as humans, we're still prone to having these impulsive responses. Something heavy comes, get me out of here. A dense energy comes, oh, I want to get out of here. I've had this now. That's why I repeatedly had to move. It's like the first situation is like, oh no, I'm trapped. I need to get out of here. It's like being in a straitjacket. It's difficult as hell. But then you have to realize the Christ merges with the essence of whatever it is, light or dark, good energy, bad energy, positive, negative. It embraces the situation and says, okay, I'm here now, but I'm still the Christ. Oh, this is happening, but I'm still the Christ. There still is the Christ. The Christ always is. So make that your daily prayer if you can, especially if you're finding yourself in turmoil and difficulties. Remember, we're not here to overcome as tiny little humans trying to get our way out. No. We are here to become the embodiments of the most precious, most pristine, most profound essence of life and the aspect of source we know as cosmic Christ, the God of Christ, the Christ of God. However you wish to call it, it's your own thing. It doesn't matter. It comes from the heart. It comes from here. And at the end, I want to thank those of you who've been with me long enough, those of you who are on Patreon and patient for me to come back, which I will only be able when I get a real home. I hope third time is the charm. I've never asked any one of you anything, but for now, I do ask us all together to have a prayer. And I also have, not like, oh, I'm not strong enough, I can do it on my own, but to invite you to join this aspect of compassion for the other, for us, for all of us who are doing this work, because it is for the vision of Source, for the vision of God. And you know how many people have been calling Source the universe. The New Age term is the universe. Universe is a creation. Universe is not God. Okay? I've been calling it all these names because it's easier, right? But universe is already something material, something, it has a substance. Go beyond, go deeper, connect to that. And if you're finding difficulty, you feel yourself not connected, then realize, instead of seeing it negatively, say, oh, I'm actually connecting now to the true triune God, to the essence of Christ, to the beauty of life, and I'm going to be resplendently rejuvenated in my new form. I don't see how it is because I have to trust, I have to have faith and I have to trust, and I will go through divine will, applying the divine laws, and through grace, the beauty and motion of my own life moving me forward. I will do this. I am doing this. So I never ask anything from any of one of you, but I do ask your prayers for my safety, for your safety, for our group, for Ascension Pioneers, for this work to continue. And I want to also thank those of you who have been donating. There's not a lot, and there's always just few regulars, always the same people, which sometimes leaves me a little bit like, you know, wishing there was more in terms of people demonstrating the nature of Christ. Like, you don't just receive, but you also show gratitude and appreciation. That's what it's about. So I do wish to see more of that. It's not from financial reasons for me. It's more like to see that people can open up their hearts more and say, I can demonstrate. Even if it's just tiny exchange, it's still me demonstrating it. And I wish, like I said, that more people would show up in that way and demonstrate the real meaning of Christ. Like, they're not just taking, right? And realize that is important, because when you demonstrate, the Christ will do everything for you. Okay, so thank you for being with me here. Again, I don't know when it's the next time I can show up. I'm in a very difficult situation now. I'm being squeezed to the last, and I have to see the good in it as well as the bad, and that there is no difference. Just is. So thank you. You know me. Even if I'm like this, even if I'm in my worst life situation, even if like my life is threatened, I wouldn't complain. I'm not like that. So people always take my life as, oh, she has it so easy. No, it's because I make it look easy, because I never complained. I just share the difficulties I go through, but I don't complain. And it's the power and strength of people who are truly walking through their own inner faith. And all it can be is an established is through my own example. And I hope that by the time I get my new place, I can start doing these sessions again. For those of you interested, I'm really so looking forward to that, because I miss working with people and with all of you. So thank you for being here, as always, with love, wisdom, and power. And if you want, visit the donation page. It's always appreciated to demonstrate the beauty of giving and receiving. And so much love, wisdom, and power, as always. Take care, and I'll see you on the other side one day soon again.